We are only 5 days out from the start of the Team Tour draft. So I've been talking to a lot of rookies, and today I just want to look over a few different rookies' games that I've gotten, review them, and talk about some tips that I think could just help a lot of newer players. So we're just going to get started with game one. I'm going to keep it all anonymous, just to not put these players on blast. So let's get started here. Okay, we're buying Cricket. I like that. Mosquito, I think it's a little questionable. And then we buy Otter. So, in this case, and I'm not going to go over every mistake. There's a lot of, subtle things that might be wrong in these games, but I'm just going to try and hit the main points. So real quick, I want to talk about turn one. So turn one, I made this little chart. It's in really bad quality. This is the only thing I could find with Pigeon on it on Tierless Maker. I'm sorry. Okay, so these are the pets that I want to take in turn one, right? Beaver, duck, pig, pigeon. These are the 4 good ones. These guys, amazing. If I see them in the first shop, I'm always buying them. Pretty much no matter what. These pets are the pets that they're okay, right? Like these ones, if there's nothing else, sure. Maybe I'll take one of them, right? If I get a shop that's a horse, a mosquito, and a cricket, I'll take the cricket. Or if I hit, 2 ants, 2 crickets, 2 ducks, whatever, anything like that, I'll take them. Otter, even if 2 otters, sometimes I'm skipping it. But these 2 pets are bad. I will sometimes take them if there's 2 of them. There's situations where I'd still consider skipping them, even with 2 of them. These units are just bad. So here, I don't love the otter take. We've already taken, the cricket I think is a fine unit to take. On this board, we have, mosquito's not great. The otter's not the greatest, but the cricket's okay. So yeah, we can take the cricket, and then we can just roll. And then our goal on turn 1 is we are trying to get duplicates, right? Turn 1, we're trying to prepare for turn 3. Turn 3, we can take our merges, and we can see tier 3 pets. So that's our goal. We freeze the cricket, that's fine. Alright, so, okay, we're going to win that round, which is good. Nice, we got cricket, and bang, we hit a bunch of stuff. We could easily have a triple and a double, but if we do it this way, we're going to have a double and another double and then a triple frozen. I probably would have preferred to just buy the otter. There's definitely worlds where we're not taking the mosquito. Generally, if you can have a guaranteed triple, you should just take it, rather than still having things to roll for on turn 3. And we're trying to win this round because we lost the last round. Or because we won the last round, so we're still trying to win this round. Okay, we lose, but that's okay, because we get the life back. And now we could get snail value. Okay, so here, we end up not taking either of these triples, or neither of the tier ups, which I think is probably not correct. Generally the triples are just going to have better abilities. They're a turn early. They'll generally have better abilities than the pets we can find right now. My game's glitching, but we can find pets from tier 1 and 2. And, elephant, I think, is a pretty bad option. I think it's a pretty bad tier 3. I think you should pretty much never take it, especially when you're new to the game. It can just throw you off. But we don't end up taking him. So going into this round, we're hoping we win it. Nice, we get it. Cool. It's a good start. We're taking some lives. Rolling. We could consider the Swan. Swan's pretty good because it just ends up giving you extra gold the rest of the game, which is always great. Also, Flamingo. I really like it on turns 3 and 4, just because it's like buying a salad, but targeted, right? Because you can just pill a Flamingo. It's also decent stats. Holding on to these mosquitoes feels a little bit weird because it's a little bit harder to hit them, and we're keeping not very good units. So it gets really awkward trying to do anything on this board because our whole board is filled, and we want to if we want these mosquitoes, we'd have to stack them. Then we have a 1.5. Better idea is just sell them and start taking better units. But we end up taking the triple here. So the reason we probably don't want to take the triple here is because we're on turn 4. So the way tier ups work, right? You get 2 pets, or 2 choices of a pet, from the tier ahead of where you're currently at. So if you take it on turn 4, you're getting what you unlock next turn on tier 3, sorry. If we waited till turn 5, we get a pet from turn 7, tier 4, which would be 2 turns early. So you generally want to save your tier ups for odd number turns, because that's when you can get pets that are 2 tiers ahead, or 2 turns ahead of where you currently are, instead of just 1 turn ahead. We end up taking a hedgehog here, which I think is weird. We could probably take one of our triples. We do freeze the sheep, and we end up finding a cricket. Let me save the tier up for later. We end up freezing a honey here, which doesn't feel the greatest, but we'll see. We'll talk about that next. Let's see the battle. Okay. We go through, and we win this one. Nice. Hedgehog in the back, it's interesting. It'll definitely help us like get draws, and could protect us from losing a life. Yeah, and I understand why the honey's frozen for it. However, generally, I want to say there's just better options, right? So that honey is a tier 1 food. Generally, you don't really want to buy things that are from the tier that aren't from the current tier that you're on. My game's still not showing that we're on tier 3, but we're on tier 3 at this point because we're on turn 5. So generally, you don't really want to be buying these foods on turn 5. We would buy garlics, we would buy salads, of course, and we would definitely want to buy these pets. Some of them. But buying these pets doesn't feel near as good at this point. Or buying tier 1s definitely doesn't feel near as good. If you're buying them to get like a triple, then sure. I usually like getting triples. But if you're just buying just a new pet onto your board and you don't have any of them, generally you want to stick to pets that are in the tier you're on. And same with equipment. Also, generally before you buy anything, you should just take your triples. That way you can see, that way you just have more information. Okay, we end up taking the sheep. And we end up skipping this. We could take this penguin. We have level 2s. So taking an early penguin, we're just getting stats every turn. This is like a free pear every turn, or 2 free apples. Or a salad. It's pretty good. And generally scaling is kind of your goal in Turtle Pack. Your goal is generally to just make your units kind of as big as possible, and then late game, you're going for like a bit more of abilities. Late game, you try and get some snake, some tiger, maybe some mammoth, some different things like that. But generally, early scaling options are always a great pick, especially on tier. Okay, we end up finding a sheep. Okay. And we draw that round because of the honey. I do think that it's a cool idea. I do like the hedgehog honey. I don't know if I would necessarily do it, but it is a cool idea. I like the creativity there. Okay, so we freeze this kangaroo. Are we going to buy it here? Oh, we're buying the dog. Okay. So here I want to talk about freeze rolling. So freeze rolling is when you freeze something and then roll naturally. Generally you shouldn't do it, because every one of these rolls, if you didn't have this kangaroo frozen, you're getting 4 pet slots and 2 food slots. Now we're only getting 3 pet spots and 2 food slots. So each one of these rolls is just not as good. We're just getting worse rolls. If we want to buy the kangaroo, we should just buy it. Just buy it now. Like, nothing's really changing. So we could just, if we do want to buy the kangaroo, which I don't think we necessarily should buy it here, but if we do want to buy it, we should just be buying it now, rather than just rolling it and making our rolls less efficient. We find another triple. Again, we could take another penguin. If we had 2 penguins right now, that'd be great. We'd have, tons of scaling every turn. We end up freezing the deer. In this situation, I think freeze rollings makes more sense. Like, if you don't have enough gold to buy it, but you want to buy it next turn, sure, then you can freeze roll it. That's fine. But if you have enough gold to buy it, generally probably don't freeze roll things. It's a good rule of thumb. Okay, our hedgehog actually ends up clearing the board out for us, which is pretty cool. Okay, we sell the mosquito. Probably buying the deer here. Yep. Cool. Deer's usually a good pet. Provides a lot of tempo. Tempo is, like how good your board is now, right? You have like scaling and tempo, and those are kind of the two separate things. Like scaling is like your long term, how good your board will be in the future. Tempo is like, this makes my board better right now. Okay. We're buying the camel. Again, it's off curve. Curve being, I don't know if I explained that term, but curve being, so like if something's on curve, that means it's the tier that you're currently on, which in this case would be your tier 4. Ahead of curve would be your tier 5s, and then behind curve is anything else. Generally taking pets that are behind curve, or pets from previous tiers, is not the greatest option, because you can just find pets with better abilities and better base stats. We're rolling. We did roll past, I didn't freeze on it, but we rolled past a turtle and a pill was in shop at the same time. Generally, turtles are very strong. They give you a tier 6 food, or tier 6 perk, on turn 7, which is very strong. So those are always something. If I see a turtle in the shop, I definitely want to at least consider it. They're not always correct, but a lot of the time, I'm taking turtles. Especially with a pill in the shop, because then it's just a 4 gold melon. Okay. We do still have this kangaroo frozen, which is unfortunate because it's making our rolls worse. But we get there, which is nice. Our opponent's down to 2 lives. Okay, we freeze our cricket. Not the biggest fan of that. Or we sell our cricket. Not the biggest fan, because it was our biggest unit. And generally, again, my goal in Turtle Pack is to try to make my units as big as possible. I'm trying to scale up units really big so that I can just clear through my opponent's board. We end up buying kangaroo. Again, off curve, not my favorite. Apple, same deal. I don't gotta harp on the point too much. Hippo. Okay, we freeze a pair. Pair's going into turn 9. Are not the greatest, but I do like getting more scale, so I'm not too mad. Our opponent is on lethal, so here we do just want to win the game if we can. We sell our sheep. Buying the hippo. Again, probably take your triple first. You're probably buying this chocolate on the kangaroo. You should probably just do that first. That way you know what your options are. That way if you change your mind on what you want to do, you can. Oh, and we're going to freeze roll the chocolate. Okay. We find another chocolate. And now we're taking it. Okay. Ooh. Snake is very strong. So is Tiger. But Snake especially is a very, very strong unit. Snake is probably the best tier 6. Maybe second best. Maybe Mammoth's the best. But probably Snake is the best tier 6. You can put it behind your big unit, if you have a big unit. And then it'll just get extra hits every time. You can even put a Tiger behind the Snake. And then you're getting 2 extra hits every time your big pet attacks. But we don't take them. And at this point, if we look at our opponent's board, they have 2 rabbits, and they're making a big hippo. So they are scaling. We've got them down to 1 life, we have 6. Okay, so at this point, I am going to skip ahead. At this point, the game goes on with the opponent keeps scaling up the hippo, they use their rabbits, they keep scaling, and we end up losing our lives. We're down to lethal on both sides here. They ended up getting a monkey too, so they were scaling even more. They got 1 big unit, they got a snake behind it, and we'll see how this final battle goes. And they end up, their unit's just too big for us to compete with. So that's kind of why I think scaling's so important, because if they just have 1 big unit, it doesn't really matter what abilities our pets have or what level they are. They'll just be able to go through our entire board with their big unit. But overall, yeah, the main things I'd say is just try to focus on scaling up your units to be as big as possible. That's kind of your goal in Turtle Pack. You want to find some decent units, like generally turn 1 and 2, you're finding your triples, take them on turn 3, and then you get, a tier 3, maybe a good tier 2. You try and buff those units, and then later in the game you start putting in some other better scalers or better support units, like Snake or Tiger, those types of things. Yeah, overall, not too terrible. Alright, now we'll move on to the next game. Alright, we got another game here from another different player. Let's go ahead and watch it. Okay, we're starting off with Cricket. I like that. No, I'm good with all this. Taking the Otter, I'd probably rather take the Ant. I just don't think Otter's very good. It buffs the tier 1 unit, which generally we don't really want to keep our tier 1 units anyway, so buffing them generally doesn't feel the greatest. And the Ant is just a bigger temporary buff. Helps us win rounds. But we get there. I don't think it matters too much. And we end up finding an Otter anyway, so not bad. Okay. You could probably buy the Otter first, since we already have an extra stat on the Beaver. You could have bought the Otter first, just that way it can't hit this Beaver, because if it hits this Beaver, then it's kind of a waste. But it didn't hit it anyway, so it didn't matter too much. Nice, we end up finding the Beaver. Here we could probably just sell the Cricket and get the Beaver on board now. It saves us 2 gold next turn. 2 gold instead of 3 because we sell the Cricket, and we could sell the Cricket next turn, which is worth 1 gold. So it just saves 2 gold for next turn. But I think it's fine. Alright. Okay, we end up losing the round. That's alright though. Okay, we take our triple. Nice. Okay, we end up finding a dolphin and a dog. Dolphin's fine. I think dog's also good. I think both are pretty considerable here. I personally am not the biggest dog fan, but I know a lot of people are, and dog's generally a pretty good tempo unit, but dolphin can work as a good buff target too. Better than nothing, at least. Better than anything on this board. We do skip a flamingo there, which doesn't feel great. Generally, turn 3, turn 4, I'm taking every flamingo I see. But I do like freezing snail. Snail, very strong. And we took a swan here, which, swan, again, extra gold, always helpful. Okay, we lose that round. That's alright. Oh, here we have a flamingo and a pill in the shop. Let's see if we find it. Okay. Nice, really good. Okay. We are buffing the Beaver here, which it doesn't feel great. It is our biggest unit right now, so it's pretty understandable to buff it. But again, it just doesn't feel great, and it's kind of caused by like the Otter made it our biggest unit, which then makes it so we kind of feel like we have to buff it more, and we get stuck with a cell unit being our buff target, which is never great because then we're just not using his ability at all. Alright, we end up getting more snails though. Always good. Helps us win rounds. Gets us the stats from losing. That way we can kind of come back. Really good dolphin snipe on that swan with a meat bone. Okay, we get another swan. Not bad. We could probably just stack these snails here and put the swan on board. Just that way we're getting, we're not missing out on the extra gold that we could get. And the swans, or the snails aren't triggering this turn anyway, so it's just 1 extra gold. We rip the salad. This salad, same deal. We should, if we're gonna buy this salad, we should stack the snails first, just so that we can have less bad hits. Because like if it hits, we don't really want to hit either of the snails, honestly. But if it is gonna hit a snail, we'd rather not be able to hit both snails. Because the worst case scenario here is it hits both the snails. So if we stack 1 snail, then it can only ever hit 1 of them. Also, this garlic, pretty good. We don't end up taking it, but garlic just a lot of times helps make breakpoints. Breakpoints being just how the pets trade into each other. But if you just buy the garlic, it could help this beaver trade into more of their board. Because at this point, we're pretty committed to the beaver, unfortunately. Another salad, same issue. Our snails are still here, so it's kind of awkward. We end up losing the round. Okay, we saw our swan. That swan was... Didn't we have a... Hold on. Oh, that was a 1.5 swan. I am not the biggest fan of that. Generally, selling 1.5 units is not great. Also, another reason maybe putting on board would have been better, because then we could sell it. We would have gotten extra gold here, you know. Instead, buying that, we got nothing out of buying it. It was just a waste of 3 gold. Selling it here, it could be a triple on turn 7, which is good, and turn 6 draft is decent, but I don't know if it's worth selling a 1.5 swan for. We can maybe consider stacking snails to buy this, but yeah, I think I maybe even just skip the draft there and kind of look for my triples, maybe buy some equipment. Nice, okay. You do buy garlic though, I like that. Another salad. Again, yeah, see here it hit both of our bad units. These salads just aren't all that great in general. Like, we have 3 bad hits, you know? Like, over half of the things the salad could hit are bad for us. We only have 2 things that we ever want that salad to hit, and it didn't have either of them. Also, buffing this beavers, it just doesn't feel great. Again, buffing tier 1s isn't great. It is our biggest unit, so at this point, it's not much you can do, but it just feels bad when you see it. Though I think it's correct here. We lose the round. Okay, turn 7. We're looking for our tier ups here. Okay, we find our snail tier up. Nice. This draft I don't love. This draft, like, pretty immediately becomes our sell slot. I guess we could also stack it later, but it just doesn't feel great. Like, turn 3 draft, or turn 7 draft, it's behind curve, and it only gives us, like, an apple of value every turn. Like, we can just find pears and salads in the shop that give, like, 2 turns of this. So it doesn't feel great, because this is immediately the pet that we're selling if we find anything better. Or we could stack it, but, you know, tearing up a draft is, like, also not that great this late into the game. That can, pretty good. I'm fine with that can. Okay, we end up losing the round again. Okay, we take the pear. Yeah, see, we end up selling that draft anyway. So it was a 2 gold apple, which I just don't think is quite worth it. We end up selling both drafts here. Okay. And we end up buying a penguin and an pear. Okay. So that's weird. Let me go back real quick. So let me wait until it's in shop. Yeah, we buy the pear again. Just rewatching here. Okay. So we have a 2-7 draft and a 1-4 draft, which is more stats than the penguin. And our buff targets right now are like the beaver and probably the dolphin. And we have the pear. So we're selling both the drafts to get what is essentially also a giraffe. This is giving like the same amount of stats as the giraffe gives, other than now we're giving it to the snail instead of the dolphin, so we have to spend like quite a few turns trying to catch up to the dolphin. We could have just bought the pear and had the drafts, and it would have been like basically the same, but just had better units on board and costed less gold. Like, we could have just bought the pear and then rolled. Yeah, so that seems pretty weird to me. And penguins generally, like, I take penguins if I tier up into them, but then, like, on curve, penguins don't feel too great. They're a little bit slow, especially since they got nerfed somewhat recently. Yeah, but that's just not worth it. Like, we're buffing a unit that we care less about, especially where the snail's hitting this turn. The snail's going to be buffing our dolphin, so we want to keep making our dolphin bigger, but this kind of counteracts that and does the same amount of buffs. And even if we did want to buff the snail, we could have just put a giraffe behind it. And we would add 5 units on the board. I do like that we're repositioning here, because we do have to kill a camel. Could have done that earlier, but it's okay. What is happening? Alright. Nice. And we will take this round, because we repositioned there, which is good. Okay, we take the shark. Salad on turn 9 feels pretty bad. It does not feel good. We don't want it to hit the penguin. We don't really want it to hit the snail. At this point, it's like kind of awkward. If it's the dolphin, like most of the hits are bad, and it's not that many stats, especially where we can find sushis at this point. We can find chocolate, which I mean we can find chocolate, which is just way better, and we can find chili, which is very strong. I think a lot of people don't, especially like newer players of the game, don't really consider chili. It's very strong. Being able to do damage to the unit behind is really good, and it also allows you to like pop melons behind, or mess up ordering. Like if they have like a badger and then a small unit, you can mess up that stuff. Also, we have a turtle in the shop. Turtle, great unit. I'm buying it here for sure. But we skip all of it. Yeah, the chili I'm probably taking, probably putting it on the beaver. And then I'm probably also taking this turtle. Probably selling snail at this point. Just sell snail, buy turtle, buy chili. We could get turtle on the shark or turtle on beaver. If we're putting turtle on beaver, then we put chili elsewhere. But yeah. And we end up selling the dolphin to take a monkey. That's fine. We're on 2 lives, so like doesn't feel too great. We kind of need to be winning rounds. And buying scaling at this point, it's like we're trading a lot of stats to get this monkey, like we had, what was it, 710 or something like that, 710 dolphin, 712 maybe, to get a pair every turn and a smaller unit, which we're also putting it all onto the beaver, and the beaver's getting hit by the skunk. So I think that's like maybe not the greatest move, but that's okay. Because at this point, we need to watch out. Like, our opponent has a skunk, so they are definitely playing into the fact that we have just one big unit. And they end up killing our shark early. So, at this point, with their current board, we need to think, okay, we need to keep this shark alive. Like, this is our pretty much most important unit right now. Because he can get big later on. Like, and beaver, of course. Beaver's our big unit. But then this guy will also get big. We need to protect him. And we can protect him from the hedgehog just by getting him some more stats. So let's see what we do here. Okay, we're selling penguin and shark for salads. Okay, that I really don't like. We're losing out on so much tempo there. I mean, shark is like in battle, so that was a 4/4 shark, and then in battle there's at least 4 things dying. So that shark would have been, I mean, it's gaining an extra 10/10 of stats. No, 8/8 of stats. So it would have been a 12/12 if it, lives all the way through. A 12/12 unit that we're selling to get 12/12 of stats, but our board is also just smaller and not as good now. And then we're taking a rhino. The rhino, if they position the same, is good for them. It helps them because they have a camel, so they're just getting stats out of that. Yeah, the rhino actively helps them. I guess actually with the monkey buff, I think it's good for them. It just, gets their camel more stats. The croc doesn't really do anything. And then we rip another sushi. We end up drawing that round. Draws are good for us. We're scaling, and they're not scaling. So in theory, draws are good for us. Okay, we still have this croc on board, which again doesn't feel great. Generally, like committing to snipes like this, like it's pretty easy for your opponent to just counter this. Like they could just buy a bigger unit and put it in the back, or get a melon just like not to. Okay, this can, for normal can reasons, is not a good can, right? Because generally you buy a can because it's future investment into units that you haven't bought yet. That's not the case here, though. This can, on the surface, doesn't look great, but then you think about, okay, the snake, and then you think about this, right? We have Hedgehog, which is hitting twice for 4 damage. So buying the can does make sure that the snake at least survives the Hedgehog. If the Blowfish ever hits it, it dies, but, which is good. It still doesn't feel great, because the Blowfish could just hit it and kill it, but I'm okay with it here. I like the thought process there. Alright, yeah. So we take the snake. And we'll see. It's not looking great, but maybe we can get there. Also here, we definitely don't want our Rhino front. Like, we want our snake and our tiger to be as close to the front as possible. That way they can get their triggers off. Like, they're not doing much good for us if they're not closer to the front, because they just can't kill anything if they're not in the front. Like here, the Blowfish gets another trigger before they ever trigger. If we have Beaver in the front, the Beaver is going to swing twice, once into the whale, once into the Hedgehog. So we'll get 2 extra swings off of these. But instead we have the Rhino front, and Rhino front, it just gives their camel 1 extra trigger and kills our Rhino. So we end up losing this, and they win. Okay. Definitely some spots to think about. Like, the spot where we isolated to get sushi value, I don't think that was quite worth it. Also, the whole time we were buffing a beaver, which was all kind of, the whole buffing the beaver was started because of buying otters, right? So this whole game kind of feeling awkward that we had to buff a beaver, I would say all leads back to the fact that we bought those otters. Both the otters hit the beaver, which made it so the beaver was just that little bit harder to sell and a little bit easier to buff. And then we ended up buffing it a little bit more, which makes it a little bit easier to buff. And it just keeps kind of snowballing until you end up with a 1930 beaver, which beaver just doesn't have an ability in battle. Like, if you make a big beaver, it essentially doesn't have an ability, because you're never going to get the value out of it. So I think that wasn't great. And then also that shark that we sold at that point, same, that was when we were isolating. I think that shark was good. That shark definitely could have ended up doing good for us. It's a little bit hard to keep it alive, but if you can get it a few stats, it could definitely end up being big in the back, and then, you know, trade with their back line. Yo, it's editing Porter. This video is long, and I filmed a whole nother game, but it's so long, and editing's hard. So I'm just gonna end it here. If you have any comments on any questions on anything I said, feel free to put them in the comments. Like, subscribe, other YouTube words. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching.